The phone shouldn't be ringing. Dominic Blackthorne stared at the device vibrating across his mahogany desk, its screen glowing with two words that made his jaw tighten. Unknown caller. He didn't answer unknown numbers. Ever. That was the first rule of survival when you ruled the East Coast Syndicate with blood and precision. When your enemies circled like wolves waiting for weakness. When one wrong move could collapse an empire built on fear and respect. The vibration stopped. Silence settled over his penthouse office, broken only by the hum of Manhattan traffic 43 floors below. Through floor-to-ceiling windows, the city stretched out in cold December darkness, lights flickering like dying stars. Dominic returned his attention to the contract spread before him. A shipping deal worth $8 million that required his signature by midnight. His pen hovered over the dotted line. The phone buzzed again. Unknown caller. His chest tightened. An instinct he couldn't name crawled up his spine, settling at the base of his skull like a warning he'd ignored once before. 3 years ago, the night everything shattered. He let it ring. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. The screen went dark. Dominic exhaled slowly, forcing his shoulders to relax. Paranoia was a disease in his line of work. It spread like infection, turning rational men into ghosts jumping at shadows. He'd seen it destroy stronger alphas than vibration. Third call. His hand moved before his mind caught up, fingers closing around the phone. He swiped to answer and pressed it to his ear, his voice dropping to a growl that had made grown men confess secrets they'd buried for decades. You have 30 seconds. Silence crackled on the other end. Then came breathing, shallow, uneven, desperate. P, please. The voice trembled, barely holding together. Young, male, Omega. I don't know who else to call. Dominic's free hand curled into a fist. 25 seconds. Your son. The words broke on a sob. Your son is dying on the street. The contract slipped from the desk. Pages scattered across Italian marble flooring. Forgotten. Say that again. Dominic's voice came out flat, devoid of the fury building behind his ribcage. He's bleeding. The Omega's words tumbled out faster now, tripping over fear and urgency. He can't breathe right. They left him tied up like trash, like he didn't matter. Please, I don't know what to do. Dominic stood so fast his leather chair slammed backward into the wall. My son is dead. Each word came out carved from ice. Buried 3 years ago. If this is some kind of, then why does he keep asking when his father's coming? The floor tilted. Dominic gripped the edge of his desk, knuckles white, breathing shallow. The city lights blurred through the window. His alpha senses sharpened to a razor's edge, catching something in the background of the call. Rain hitting pavement, distant sirens, the wet sound of labored breathing that didn't belong to the Omega. What's his name? Dominic heard himself ask. The Omega hesitated. He said his name is Kale. The name detonated in Dominic's chest. Kale, the child he'd denied, the pregnancy he'd called a lie, the bond he'd severed to protect his throne from enemies who would have used an heir as a weapon. The decision that haunted every quiet moment when the Empire stopped demanding his attention and left him alone with ghosts. Where? The word scraped out of his throat. The alley behind Mercy Street Station, near the old textile factory. The Omega's voice cracked. He's so cold. I took off my coat, but he won't stop shaking. Dominic was already moving, phone clamped between his shoulder and ear as he grabbed his keys and weapon from the desk drawer. Don't move. Don't let anyone near him. I'm coming. Who do I say is? Tell him his father's late. He ended the call. The elevator descended in silence that pressed against his eardrums like deep water. Dominic watched the numbers drop, 40, 35, 30, while his mind raced through scenarios, each one worse than the last. Kale was supposed to be dead, buried in the lie Dominic had crafted to keep him safe, hidden so deep that not even Dominic's own people knew the truth. If Kale was bleeding on a street corner, someone had found him. Someone wanted Dominic to know. The elevator opened to the underground garage where his driver stood beside a black SUV, already holding the door. Marcus didn't ask questions. After 15 years of service, he'd learned when silence was survival. Mercy Street Station, Dominic said, sliding into the back seat. The alley behind it. Fast. The SUV tore out of the garage with the kind of speed that turned traffic laws into polite suggestions. Dominic pulled out his phone and made 3 calls in rapid succession. The first mobilized his security team. The second alerted his private doctor. The third went to his intelligence network with a single instruction: find out who knew. His hands weren't shaking. They never shook. But his reflection in the tinted window showed something he hadn't seen in 3 years: fear wearing an alpha's face. Rain started as they crossed into the industrial district. Not the gentle kind that washed streets clean, but the heavy sheets that hammered metal and concrete with violence. The SUV's wipers struggled to keep pace. Marcus took a corner too fast. Tires screamed. Dominic didn't tell him to slow down. Mercy Street Station appeared through the downpour. A skeletal structure of rusted metal and broken windows where the city had once promised renewal that never came. Now it was just another monument to abandoned dreams, the kind of place where people disappeared and no one asked questions. The perfect place to leave a message. The alley came into view. Marcus hit the brakes. The SUV skidded to a stop, headlights cutting through rain and darkness to illuminate a scene that would burn itself into Dominic's memory forever. A figure knelt on wet pavement, small, drenched, hunched over something even smaller. The Omega looked up as the headlights hit him, one arm raised to shield his eyes. His other arm cradled a child who wasn't moving. Dominic was out of the SUV before Marcus could put it in park. Rain soaked through his suit in seconds. Cold bit through expensive fabric as he crossed the distance in long strides that ate up asphalt. The Omega scrambled backward, fear written across delicate features, but Dominic wasn't looking at him. He was looking at the child. Dark hair plastered to a small skull. Suit jacket 3 sizes too big, soaked through. Pants torn at the knees. Shoes that had probably been polished that morning, now scuffed and filled with rainwater. And the face, even through blood and bruises, even with eyes closed and lips blue from cold, Dominic recognized the features he saw in his own mirror. The shape of the jaw, the arch of the brows, the way the child's left ear sat slightly higher than the right. A genetic quirk Dominic had inherited from his father, who'd inherited it from his father before him. But it was the scent that destroyed him. Every alpha knew their bloodline by scent. It was printed in DNA, unmistakable and absolute. The child smelled like rain and copper and something underneath that made Dominic's alpha roar with recognition. Mine. He dropped to his knees in dirty water, suit forgotten, empire forgotten, everything forgotten except the small body that should have been safe and hidden and alive somewhere far from here. Kale. His voice came out broken. The child's eyes fluttered open. One brown, one hazel, heterochromia that had marked Dominic's bloodline for 6 generations. The boy's lips moved. You're late. Then his eyes rolled back and he went limp in the Omega's arms. What would you risk everything for? Power or the one person who calls you late instead of king? The Omega's fingers were bleeding, not fresh blood, the kind that came from tearing through zip ties with bare hands until skin split and nerves screamed. Old blood, dried dark under the rain, washing it away in pink streams. 20 minutes earlier, Elian Rowe had been invisible. That was his superpower in a city that ate people like him for breakfast. Poor Omegas didn't survive by being seen. They survived by mastering the art of not existing, of moving through spaces like smoke, leaving no trace and making no waves. He'd perfected it. 6 years of night shift cleaning at the Imperial Tower downtown. 6 years of emptying trash cans and mopping floors while the city's elite slept in beds that cost more than Elian made in a year. 6 years of keeping his head down and his sense suppressed because unwanted attention could mean things worse than poverty. Tonight, invisibility failed him. The rain had started during his walk to the subway. Not unusual for December. Elian pulled his thin jacket tighter and quickened his pace through the industrial district. taking the shortcut behind Mercy Street Station that shaved 10 minutes off his commute. That's when he heard it. Screaming. Not the horror movie kind. Worse, the kind of screaming that came from a man who knew exactly what was about to happen and couldn't stop it. Elian froze at the alley's mouth. Common sense said keep walking. Survival instinct said run. Every lesson learned from growing up poor in a rich city said this wasn't his business. His feet moved forward anyway. The alley opened up into a loading area, concrete slick with rain and oil. Neon light from a dying sign flickered red and blue across the scene. A man on his knees, phone pressed to his ear, voice raw with panic. 3 others stood around him, faces hidden by hoods, postures radiating the kind of violence that came with experience. And on the ground between them, barely visible in the shadows, a child. Small body, too big suit, hands bound behind his back with plastic zip ties, cloth gag tied around his mouth. Elian's breath caught. The kneeling man kept screaming into his phone. Please, I did what you asked. I brought him here. Don't. One of the hooded figures moved fast. Something metal flashed. The man collapsed, phone skittering across wet concrete. Headlights swept across the alley entrance. A black sedan materialized from nowhere, door already opening. The hooded figures dragged the unconscious man inside with practiced efficiency. The child remained on the ground. Forgotten, the sedan's taillights disappeared into rain and darkness. Silence crashed down like a weight, broken only by water drumming against metal dumpsters and the child's breathing, quick, shallow, wrong. Elian should have called the police, should have found someone with authority and power and the ability to handle situations that involved bound children and violence and whatever nightmare he'd just witnessed. Instead, he ran to the child. Up close, the wrongness multiplied. The suit was expensive. Elian recognized quality fabric from cleaning enough executive offices. Hand-stitched lapels, custom buttons, the kind of outfit that cost more than Elian's monthly rent. But it was ruined. Torn, soaked. The child's face was pale beneath dark hair, lips trembling around the gag. Elian's hands shook as he reached for the zip ties. Cheap plastic, pulled tight enough to cut into small wrists. He worked his fingers underneath, pulling, twisting. The plastic bit into his palms. Hold on, Elian whispered. Just hold on. The tie snapped. The child's hands fell free, wrists raw and bleeding. Elian moved to the gag next, fingers clumsy with cold and fear as he untied the knot. The child coughed, gasping air that rattled wetly in small lungs. It's okay. Elian pulled off his jacket, threadbare and probably useless against December rain, but it was all he had, and wrapped it around shaking shoulders. You're okay now. The child looked up at him. Mismatched eyes, one brown, one hazel, focused with an intensity that didn't belong on someone so young. My daddy. The voice came out rough. He'll come. Elian's heart cracked. I'm sure he will. Do you know his number? The child recited it. Not slowly, not hesitating. Like he'd memorized it for exactly this moment. Elian pulled out his phone. Ancient, cracked screen, but it worked. His finger hovered over the numbers. This was the moment. The crossroads. Call this number and stop being invisible forever. Get tangled in whatever nightmare had left a child bleeding in an alley. Become a witness to something that people with hooded faces and black sedans probably killed witnesses for. Or leave. Walk away. Let someone else find the child. Stay safe in his small apartment with his small life where nothing ever touched him. The child coughed again. Blood flecked his lips. Elian dialed. It rang. Once. Twice. On the third ring, a voice answered, cold enough to freeze blood. You have 30 seconds. Elian's courage almost shattered. The voice didn't belong to a father. It belonged to something carved from winter and sharp edges. Something that made decisions in fractions of seconds and didn't forgive mistakes. But the child was dying. Please. Elian forced the words out. I don't know who else to call. What followed happened in a blur. The voice? Dominic Blackthorne. The child whispered his father's name like a prayer, demanding information. Elian giving the location, promises made, the call ending, then waiting. The child, Kale, he'd said his name was Kale, leaned against Elian's chest. Too light, too cold. Breathing like every breath was borrowed. "He's coming?" Elian whispered, more to himself than the child. "Your father's coming." "I know." Kale's eyes drifted closed. "He's always late, but he comes." The words hit Elian like shrapnel. There was history there, pain wrapped in certainty. The kind of thing children learned when adults failed them over and over, but they kept believing anyway because what else did they have? Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Elian's pulse spiked. Police meant questions. Questions meant getting trapped in systems designed to grind people like him into dust. Foster care, interrogations. His name in databases he'd spent 6 years staying out of. But leaving meant abandoning the child. Headlights cut through the rain. Not police. Worse, a black SUV exploded into the alley with the kind of speed that said laws were suggestions. It skidded to a stop, headlights pinning Elian like an insect on display. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out, tall, built like violence was a language he spoke fluently. But he wasn't the one who made Elian's breath stop. The back door opened. Another man emerged, taller, broader, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Elian's entire wardrobe. Dark hair slicked back from a face that could have been carved from granite. Eyes that swept the alley with predatory focus before landing on the child in Elian's arms. Those eyes changed. The cold calculation melted into something raw and broken and terrifying in its intensity. The man, Dominic, it had to be Dominic, crossed the distance in strides that ate up space. Rain plastered his expensive suit to his frame. He moved like water, like violence held on a leash that could snap any second. Elian scrambled backward on instinct, pulling Kale closer. Dominic dropped to his knees in the dirty water. An alpha, on his knees, in the rain. Kale. The name came out wrecked. The child's eyes opened, found his father, and smiled, small, tired, but real. "You're late," Kale whispered. Then he went limp. Dominic caught him before gravity could. His hands, large enough to break bones, cradled the small body with a gentleness that didn't match the violence radiating from every line of his frame. "Get the doctor." Dominic's voice came out flat, dead, the kind of tone that preceded body counts. "Now." The driver was already on his phone. Dominic stood, Kale held against his chest like something precious and breakable. His eyes found Elian's. "You called me." It wasn't a question. Elian nodded anyway, words stuck in his throat. "You stayed with him." Another nod. Something shifted in Dominic's expression. Not softening, nothing about this man was soft, but calculating, measuring, coming to a conclusion that made Elian's stomach drop. "Get in the car." "I what?" "You're a witness." Dominic turned toward the SUV. "You saw who did this. You're coming with us." Panic clawed up Elian's throat. "I didn't see faces. They wore hoods." "I can't." "You saw enough." Dominic's tone left no room for argument. "And you touched my son. Your scent is all over him." The words landed like a threat and a promise tangled together. Elian looked at the alley exit, calculated his chances of running, came up with numbers that all ended in pain. "I won't hurt you," Dominic said, reading his thoughts, "but others might. And I don't leave loose ends bleeding in alleys." The SUV's back door stood open, an invitation, command, a trap. Elian thought about his small apartment, his night shift job, his invisible life. Then he thought about the child's words. He's always late, but he comes. He got in the car. What happens when saving someone means losing yourself? Would you still make the call? Kale couldn't remember when the breathing got hard. Not painful exactly, just heavy. Like someone kept piling blankets on his chest and forgetting to take them off. The men, he'd counted 4 before they covered his eyes, had moved fast. One moment he was walking from the car to the building where Uncle Marcus said his father was waiting. The next, hands grabbed him from behind. He tried to scream. Cloth filled his mouth instead. They'd driven for 17 minutes. Kale counted in his head because that's what father taught him. Always know how long. Always know which direction. Information was survival. Left turn. Right turn. Straight for 8 minutes. Another left. The car stopped. They pulled him out into cold and rain. His new shoes, the ones father's assistant had bought him last month, splashed through puddles. Then Uncle Marcus was there, kneeling on wet ground, phone pressed to his ear, voice wrong. Uncle Marcus never sounded scared. He was father's oldest friend. He taught Kale how to tie his shoes and which fork to use at dinner and how to punch without breaking his thumb. But now Uncle Marcus was crying. "I'm sorry," he kept saying into the phone. "I'm so sorry. They have my daughter. They said if I didn't." One of the hooded men hit him. Uncle Marcus fell. They left Kale on the ground. Just walked away like he was trash. Like he was nothing. The cold came next, seeping through his suit, into his bones, making everything slow and distant. Time did weird things when you were dying. Kale knew he was dying. He'd seen enough movies, read enough books. When your chest hurt and your fingers went numb and everything got fuzzy around the edges, that meant dying. He wasn't scared though. Father would come. Father was always late. Father missed his birthday last year because of business in Miami. Missed the Christmas play because of meetings that couldn't wait. Missed dinner 17 times in the last month because the empire needed him. But father always came eventually. Footsteps approached through the rain. Different from before. Lighter. Hesitant. Kale tried to open his eyes. The world swam in and out of focus. Rain, darkness, a shadow leaning over him. Hands touched the zip ties around his wrists. Gentle hands, shaking. The plastic snapped. Blood rushed back into Kale's fingers, painful and sharp. The gag came off next. Air flooded his lungs. He coughed, tasting copper. "It's okay." A voice, soft and scared. "You're okay now." Kale blinked until the world steadied. A face materialized above him. Young, delicate features, wide eyes that reflected neon light. An omega. Poor from the threadbare clothes and the way he moved like someone used to being invisible. But he'd come. When everyone else left, this stranger had come. "My daddy." Kale's voice scraped out. "He'll come." The omega looked like he wanted to argue. Like he wanted to say the things adults always said when they thought you were too young to understand the truth. But he didn't. He just pulled off his jacket and wrapped it around Kale's shoulders. It didn't help much. The cold was inside now, not outside. But the gesture mattered. "Do you know his number?" Kale recited it. The number he'd memorized 3 years ago when father first taught him. The private line that only 5 people in the world had access to. The number father had made him repeat every night before bed until he could say it in his sleep. For emergencies, father had said, "If anything happens and you can't reach Marcus, you call this number." The omega pulled out a phone. His finger hovered over the screen. "Please," Kale whispered. "He'll be mad if I don't call." That was a lie. Father wouldn't be mad. Father would just be late like always. But the lie worked. The omega dialed. Kale closed his eyes and listened to the ringing. Once, twice, 3 times. Then father's voice, cold and sharp and perfect. "You have 30 seconds. The omega explained in broken sentences. Kale heard his own name spoken by a stranger's voice. Heard father's tone change from ice to something that might have been fear if father knew how to be afraid. The call ended. "He's coming," the omega whispered. "I know." Kale leaned against the stranger's chest. It hurt less that way. "He's always late, but he comes." The words were true. Father had missed birthdays and plays and dinners, but he'd never failed to come when it mattered. When Kale broke his arm falling from the oak tree in the estate garden, father had left a meeting with the governor to rush him to the hospital. When Kale's nightmares got so bad he couldn't sleep, father had spent 3 nights in a chair beside his bed, even though the empire was burning. Father came for the important things. Dying was important. Time stretched. Kale's thoughts drifted, sliding through memories like flipping through photographs. His mother's face. or what he imagined it looked like. Father never talked about her, never kept pictures. But Kale had built an image anyway, from stolen glances at other mothers, from descriptions in books, from dreams that felt more like memories. She'd been Omega. Father had loved her. Something had happened. That's all Kale knew. All Father would say. Uncle Marcus appeared in his thoughts next. Kind Uncle Marcus who'd betrayed him. Kale tried to be angry but couldn't manage it. Uncle Marcus had cried, had apologized, had a daughter somewhere who needed saving. Kale understood. Sometimes you hurt people you loved to save people you loved more. Father did it all the time. Headlights cut through the darkness. An engine roared. The Omega's arms tightened around Kale like he was planning to run. "It's okay," Kale murmured. That's him. He knew Father's cars by sound. The armored SUV with the reinforced chassis and the engine modified for speed. The one Father used when things were dangerous. A door opened. Footsteps splashed through puddles. Then Father was there. Kale had seen Father angry before. Had seen him cold and calculating and terrifying in the way alphas could be when they stopped pretending to be human. But he'd never seen Father scared. Not until now. Father's face was wrong. All the careful control stripped away, leaving something raw underneath. His eyes swept over Kale's body, cataloging injuries with the same precision he used for business deals. Father dropped to his knees. The great Dominic Blackthorne, Alpha King of the East Coast Syndicate, kneeling in dirty water like a common man. Kale, just his name, but it held everything Father never said out loud. Kale smiled. "You're late." He meant it as a joke, a little jab at Father's habit of missing things. But Father's expression shattered. Then the world tilted sideways and darkness swallowed everything. The last thing Kale felt was Father's hands catching him. Strong hands. Safe hands. Late hands. But here, when children stop fearing death because they're used to waiting, what does that say about the ones who made them wait? Dominic stopped breathing the moment Kale went limp. 3 seconds. That's how long it took for his mind to catalog worst-case scenarios. Cardiac arrest, internal bleeding, shock, hypothermia. 3 seconds of imagining a world where he'd arrived too late for something that mattered. Then Kale's chest rose, shallow but steady. Dominic's lungs remembered how to work. He stood, cradling his son against his chest with the kind of care he'd forgotten he possessed. Kale was too light, too cold. The expensive suit he'd been dressed in, custom-tailored, meant for a different kind of evening, clung to small limbs like a burial shroud. Blood smeared across Dominic's shirt. He couldn't tell if it was from Kale's split lip or the raw wounds on his wrists or somewhere worse. "Get the doctor." His voice came out flat, empty. The tone he used when emotions were dangerous and control was survival. Now, Marcus was already moving, phone pressed to his ear, barking orders into the night. Dominic's eyes found the Omega, still kneeling in the rain. Hands bloody, jacket gone, wrapped around Kale instead. Shaking so hard his teeth chattered. Young, maybe 25. Delicate features that would have been pretty if terror wasn't carved into every line. Dark skin slick with rain. Eyes too wide, reflecting headlights like a deer caught mid-flight. He'd saved Kale. This stranger who looked like a strong wind could break him. This Omega who smelled like cheap soap and fear, and underneath it all, something clean, untouched, innocent in a way that didn't exist in Dominic's world. "You called me," Dominic said. The Omega nodded, throat working like he was trying to swallow words. "You stayed with him." Another nod. Dominic's Alpha cataloged facts with brutal efficiency. The Omega had seen the kidnapping, had watched whoever orchestrated this leave Kale to die, had witnessed enough to identify faces, vehicles, patterns. Witnesses were liabilities, but this witness had saved his son. "Get in the car." The Omega's eyes went wider. "I what? You're a witness." Dominic turned toward the SUV, each step measured and controlled even though his instincts screamed to run, to get Kale somewhere safe, to tear apart whoever had done this. "You saw who did this. You're coming with us." "I didn't see faces." The words tumbled out fast, defensive. They wore hoods. I can't. You saw enough. Dominic kept his tone level. Non-negotiable. And you touched my son. Your scent is all over him. True. Also a manipulation. The Omega's scent was faint on Kale's skin, easily washed away. But fear was a useful tool. And right now Dominic needed this witness secured before whoever had orchestrated the kidnapping realized they'd left a loose end. The Omega looked toward the alley exit, calculating escape routes. Dominic had spent 15 years reading body language. This Omega wanted to run. Probably should run. Smart self-preservation instinct. I won't hurt you, Dominic said. Not a promise. A statement of fact. But others might. And I don't leave loose ends bleeding in alleys. The words could be interpreted multiple ways. Dominic meant them as protection. He wouldn't abandon the person who'd saved Kale to whoever was cleaning up evidence. But the Omega heard the threat underneath. Good. Fear kept people alive in situations where stupidity got them killed. The Omega climbed into the SUV. Dominic followed, Kale still cradled against his chest. The door slammed. Marcus was already behind the wheel, pulling out before seatbelts clicked. The interior smelled like leather and gun oil and now rain and blood. Dominic adjusted Kale's position, checking vitals with the clinical detachment of someone who'd learned field medicine because waiting for doctors could mean death. Pulse rapid but steady, breathing labored, temperature too low, bruising around the throat, from the gag, not strangulation. Cuts and abrasions consistent with rough handling. No obvious signs of internal trauma, but that meant nothing without imaging. How long was he like this? Dominic asked, not looking at the Omega. I don't know. Maybe 10 minutes before I found him? They left right before I got there. They? 3 hooded men. Black sedan. They took someone with them. The man who was kneeling. He was on the phone, apologizing to someone. Marcus's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Dominic caught the movement in his peripheral vision. Later. That conversation would happen later when Kale was safe and Dominic could afford to break things. Did the child speak to you? Dominic kept his voice neutral. Yes, he said you'd come. That you're always late, but you come. The words hit like buckshot. Scattered. Painful. Accurate. How many times had Kale waited? How many promises had Dominic broken in the name of empire building? How many moments had he missed while convincing himself he was protecting his son by keeping him distant? The math was brutal. 3 years of calculated absence. 3 years of believing distance equaled safety. 3 years of teaching his son that love came late. What's your name? Dominic asked. The Omega hesitated. Giving a name meant becoming real, becoming traceable. Elian. Elian Rowe. Where do you work, Elian? Imperial Tower. Night cleaning shift. Of course. One of the invisible workers who moved through Dominic's world without being seen. The people who emptied trash and mopped floors and witnessed conversations never meant for outside ears. Dominic filed the information away. Imperial Tower was his building, which meant Elian had been cleaning Dominic's offices for however long he'd worked there. The irony was sharp. This Omega had spent months being invisible in Dominic's space, and now he'd become the most important witness Dominic had. The SUV took a corner fast. Kale stirred against Dominic's chest, a small sound escaping his lips. Dominic's arms tightened fractionally. Almost there. Kale's eyes fluttered open. Mismatched eyes. The genetic marker that confirmed what Dominic's alpha already knew. His bloodline. His son. His failure. Daddy. The word cracked something in Dominic's chest. I'm here. You came. Not a question. A confirmation. Like Kale had never doubted despite having every reason to. I came. Uncle Marcus. Kale's voice caught. They made him. He didn't want to. Dominic's jaw locked. So Marcus had been compromised. Threatened. Used as a pawn in whatever game this was. Later. He'd deal with Marcus later. Right now, Kale was talking, which meant his airway was clear and his consciousness was stable. Don't worry about Uncle Marcus. But they hurt him. I saw. Kale. Dominic's voice dropped to the tone he used when orders weren't optional. "Stop talking. Save your energy." Cale's eyes drifted closed again. This time his breathing evened out into something that might have been sleep or might have been unconsciousness. Dominic couldn't tell. The SUV pulled up to a private entrance behind Mercy General Hospital. Not the emergency room, too public, too many questions. This was the entrance where Dominic's money ensured privacy and his reputation ensured compliance. Doors opened before Marcus could park. A medical team materialized with a gurney, led by Dr. Sarah Chun. The surgeon Dominic kept on permanent retainer for situations where explanations were complicated. "Gunshot?" Dr. Chun asked. "All business. Kidnapping. Possible hypothermia, dehydration, trauma. Unknown drug exposure." Dr. Chen's expression didn't change. She'd worked for Dominic long enough to know when questions were dangerous. "We'll need to run a full panel. X-rays, CT scan, blood work." "Do it." Dominic transferred Cale to the gurney with reluctance that felt like tearing off skin. "And I want updates every 15 minutes. You can't be in the..." "Every 15 minutes, Sarah." Dr. Chun nodded once. She understood hierarchies. The gurney disappeared through automatic doors with Cale on it, and Dominic stood in the rain watching his son vanish into fluorescent light. Marcus approached carefully. "Boss, not now. They have my daughter. They said if I didn't." "I said not now." Dominic's voice could have frozen blood. "Get inside, get dry, and don't move until I'm ready to hear what you have to say." Marcus retreated. Dominic turned to find Elian standing by the SUV, looking lost and terrified and completely out of place in a world that would eat him alive. The Omega met his eyes. "Can I go now?" Dominic considered it. Weighed the risk of letting a witness walk versus the complication of keeping him. "No, but You saved my son's life." Dominic closed the distance between them. "That debt is eternal, which means you're under my protection until whoever did this is dealt with." "I don't need." "Yes, you do." Dominic's alpha voice rolled out, compelling. "They left my son to die in an alley. They'll clean up any evidence they left behind. That includes witnesses. So unless you want to be found in a dumpster tomorrow morning, you'll stay where I can keep you alive." Elian's throat worked. Fear and understanding warred across his face. "How long?" "Until it's safe." "When will that be?" Dominic's smile was a knife edge. "When everyone responsible is dead." What price does protection carry when the one offering it has already proven he abandons what he loves? The hospital smelled like disinfectant and lies. Dominic stood outside the ICU, watching through observation glass as machines breathed for his son. Tubes and wires turned Cale into something fragile and mechanical. Nothing like the boy who'd smiled and called him late. 47 minutes since arrival. 3 updates from Dr. Chun. No complications yet, but the word yet carried weight that pressed against Dominic's chest like a stone. Behind him, Marcus sat in a plastic chair, head in his hands. Elian perched 3 seats away, still shaking, wrapped in a hospital blanket that did nothing for the shock written across his features. Dominic's phone buzzed. He answered without looking at the screen. "Talk." His head of security, James, a former Marine who'd followed Dominic out of Afghanistan and into a different kind of war, delivered his report in clipped sentences. "Found the sedan. Burned out in Riverside. No prints. No DNA. Professional job." The driver who brought Cale? Marcus's regular rotation. Anton Volkov. Found him in the Hudson an hour ago. Bullet to the back of the head. Execution style. So they'd cleaned up immediately. Killed the man who'd delivered Cale, torched the car, erased the evidence before Dominic could even process what had happened. That level of efficiency meant organization. Planning. Resources. Who benefits from this? Dominic asked. "Working on it." "But boss." James hesitated. "Marcus's daughter. We found her." Dominic's grip on the phone tightened. "Where?" "Safe house in Queens. Unconscious but alive. Drugged, not hurt. Someone wanted Marcus compliant, not vengeful. Smart. Kill a man's daughter and he becomes unpredictable. Threaten her and keep her alive, and he follows orders. Get her to a hospital. Different one. Use the alias protocols. Already done. And pull traffic cameras from every street within a mile of Mercy Station. Someone was watching. They had to be. On it. Dominic ended the call. His eyes stayed locked on Kale through the glass. Chest rising and falling with mechanical precision. Small face too pale against white sheets. 3 years ago, Dominic had made a choice. The pregnancy was impossible to hide, and his enemies were circling. Revealing an heir meant painting a target on the child before he could even breathe. So Dominic had publicly rejected the claim, called it a lie, paid the Omega, his bonded mate, the person his alpha had chosen as perfect, to disappear. The Omega had vanished that night. No trace, no trail, just gone into whatever hole people fell into when an alpha king erased them from existence. Dominic had convinced himself it was necessary. The child would be raised in secret, protected by distance and denial. When the time was right, when threats were neutralized and power was absolute, Dominic would reclaim his son. He'd told himself the lie so often he'd almost believed it. But lies had consequences. And tonight, those consequences had nearly cost Kale his life. Someone had found him. Someone had known exactly who he was and what he meant. Someone had weaponized Dominic's greatest secret against him. The question was who? Dominic turned from the window. Marcus. Marcus's head snapped up. His eyes were red-rimmed, face gray. He looked like he'd aged a decade in an hour. I need you to understand something, Dominic said quietly. Before we have this conversation, I need you to know that your daughter is safe. She's alive. She's being cared for. Marcus's breath hitched. You found her. My people did. She's at a secure location receiving medical attention. Relief crashed across Marcus's features, followed immediately by guilt. Boss, tell me everything. From the beginning. No lies. Marcus's hands shook. 3 days ago, I got a call. A known number. They had pictures of Emily, walking to school, sitting in class, sleeping in her bed. They said if I didn't do exactly what they instructed, she'd disappear. What were the instructions? Bring Kale to Mercy Street Station at 11:30 tonight. Wait in the alley. They'd take him from there. If I resisted or called for help, Emily would die. Did you recognize the voice? No. Distorted. Electronic. Did they say why they wanted Kale? No. Just that he needed to be there. Alive but alone. Dominic processed the information. This wasn't about killing Kale. If they'd wanted him dead, Marcus could have done it anywhere. This was about exposure. About forcing Dominic's hand. Who knows about Kale? Marcus swallowed. Just you, me, and the security team assigned to the safe house. 6 people total. All vetted. Then one of them isn't loyal. Boss, I chose those men myself. They'd die before. Someone talked. Dominic's voice cut through the protest. Someone sold information. And when I find out who, they'll wish Anton Volkov's death was slow. Marcus flinched. You understand you're alive only because of your daughter, Dominic continued. If you'd acted alone, if you'd betrayed me for any reason except her life, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I know, but you're compromised now. Whatever trust we had is broken, so you're suspended until this is resolved. You'll stay in protective custody. No phone, no outside contact. When this is over, we'll discuss whether you have a place in my organization. Marcus nodded. He looked hollowed out, destroyed. James will escort you to a secure location. Go. Marcus stood slowly, like his bones had forgotten how joints worked. He paused at the door. Boss, I'm sorry. For what it's worth. Dominic didn't respond. Sorry didn't rebuild trust. Sorry didn't erase the image of Kale dying on wet pavement. Marcus left. Silence settled over the waiting area. Just Dominic and Elian and the quiet hum of hospital machinery. Dominic turned his attention to the Omega. Why didn't you run? Elian looked up. exhaustion and confusion fighting for space on his face. What? When you found Kale, when you saw what had happened, why didn't you call the police and leave? Elian's jaw worked. I don't know. He was alone. He was dying. I couldn't just. Yes, you could have. Most people would have. It's not your problem. Not your child. Not your world. He's a kid. So are thousands of others dying tonight in this city. You don't save all of them. Elian's eyes flashed, the first hint of anger breaking through fear. What do you want me to say? That I made a stupid choice? That I should have walked away? I want to understand why you stayed. Because, Elian's voice cracked. Because I know what it's like to wait for someone who doesn't come. And I couldn't let him die thinking nobody cared enough to try. The words hung between them. Dominic studied Elian's face, saw the truth there, raw and unguarded. This wasn't about heroism or stupidity. This was about trauma recognizing itself in a stranger. Who didn't come for you? Dominic asked quietly. Elian looked away. Doesn't matter. It was a long time ago, but it did matter. It mattered because it explained why this Omega had risked everything for a child he didn't know. It mattered because trauma left marks, and those marks drove people to make choices that logic couldn't explain. Dr. Chun appeared through the ICU doors. Dominic was moving before she fully cleared the threshold. How is he? Stable. Body temperature is rising. No signs of internal bleeding or organ damage. The drugs in his system are wearing off, mild sedative, nothing dangerous long-term. He'll need monitoring for the next 24 hours, but barring complications, he should make a full recovery. The relief was physical, a weight lifting that Dominic hadn't realized he was carrying. When can I see him? He's sleeping now. I'd recommend letting him rest until morning. I'm not leaving. Dr. Chun sighed. She knew better than to argue. There's a chair in the room. Try not to wake him. Dominic was already moving toward the ICU doors when Dr. Chun added, Mr. Blackthorne, he's gonna be fine. You got here in time. This time. The unspoken words echoed louder than the spoken ones. Dominic entered Kale's room. The machines had been reduced to quiet monitoring. No more breathing tubes, just 4 lines and sensors tracking vitals. Kale looked smaller in the hospital bed, young and vulnerable in a way that made Dominic's alpha rage against the unfairness of it all. He pulled the chair close and sat. Kale's hand lay on top of the blanket, small, bandaged where the zip ties had cut. Dominic touched it carefully, mindful of the 4. I'm sorry, he whispered, words he never said out loud. Words that cost nothing and meant everything. I'm sorry I was late. I'm sorry I've always been late. Kale didn't wake, didn't hear the confession. Maybe that was better. Outside, through the observation window, Dominic could see Elian still sitting in the waiting area. The Omega hadn't moved, hadn't asked to leave again. He'd stayed. The way Dominic should have been staying all along. Dominic's phone buzzed. A text from James. Found something. Security footage from the safe house. You need to see this. The message included a video file. Dominic opened it. The footage showed the exterior of Kale's safe house, a suburban home designed to look ordinary. Timestamp read 3 days ago, just after midnight. The figure approached the door, hooded, careful. They disabled the security system with practiced ease, then disappeared inside. 90 seconds later, they exited. But before they left, they turned toward the camera. Just for a moment. Just long enough for the streetlight to catch their face. Dominic's blood turned to ice. He knew that face. Rafe Calder, his underboss, his second in command. The man Dominic had trusted with his life for 8 years. The betrayal was a knife between ribs. Rafe hadn't just sold information. He'd orchestrated the entire operation. He'd found Kale, compromised Marcus, staged the kidnapping. And he'd done it from inside Dominic's own organization. The phone nearly shattered in Dominic's grip. He stood, every muscle locked with controlled fury, looked down at Kale sleeping peacefully, unaware that the man who'd ordered his death was someone Dominic had called brother. Dominic made a call. Voice cold enough to frost glass. Find Rafe Calder. Bring him to the warehouse. Alive. A pause. Understood. What about his security detail? I don't care what happens to them. But Rafe lives until I get there. He ended the call, looked at Kale one more time, then walked out of the ICU toward the waiting area where Elian sat. You're staying here, Dominic said. 2 guards will be posted outside. Don't leave this floor. Elian's eyes widened. Where are you going? To make sure this never happens again. When betrayal comes from the ones you called family, is justice enough, or does vengeance become the only language left? Elian watched the Alpha King disappear through the hospital doors like a storm moving towards something that couldn't survive contact. The waiting room felt colder without him, emptier, like Dominic had taken all the air with him when he left. 2 guards materialized from nowhere. Large men in dark suits who positioned themselves by the elevator and stairwell with the kind of practiced efficiency that said violence was just another Tuesday. Elian pulled the hospital blanket tighter. His hands had stopped bleeding, but they hurt. A raw, constant ache that reminded him he'd crossed a line he couldn't uncross. He should have walked away, should have called 911 and disappeared before the black SUV arrived. Should have protected his small, invisible life instead of diving into someone else's nightmare. But the child's face kept appearing in his mind. Small body on wet pavement. Mismatched eyes that had looked at Elian like he was the only person in the world who mattered. A nurse approached, young with kind eyes. Sir, can I get you anything? Coffee? Something to eat? Elian shook his head. I'm fine. The lie tasted familiar. He'd spent 6 years being fine when fine meant surviving on ramen and hope. Fine when his apartment's heat broke in January. Fine when alphas at work cornered him in supply closets with offers that weren't really offers. Fine was a language poor Omegas learned fluently. The nurse left. Elian's phone buzzed in his pocket. Ancient, held together with a cracked screen and prayers. He pulled it out. 7 missed calls from his supervisor at Imperial Tower. 3 texts asking where he was. The last one. If you're not here in 20 minutes, don't bother coming back. Elian stared at the message. His job, his income, his entire survival system evaporating because he'd stayed with a dying child. His fingers hovered over the reply box. He could explain, could say there was an emergency, could beg for another chance. But what would he say? Sorry, I saved a mafia king's son, and now I'm trapped in a hospital under armed guard? His phone buzzed again. Different number. Unknown. Elian's stomach dropped. He answered without thinking. Hello, breathing on the other end. Then a voice, distorted, electronic. Wrong. You made a mistake tonight. Elian's blood froze. You should have kept walking. Now you're a problem. The line went dead. Elian's hands shook so hard the phone clattered to the floor. One of the guards glanced over, noticed, approached with quick strides. You okay? Someone just... Elian couldn't catch his breath. They called me. They said. The guard picked up the phone, checked the call log. His expression darkened. He spoke into a radio clipped to his collar. We've got a breach. Unknown caller contacted the witness. I need a trace on this number immediately. Static crackled. A voice responded with codes Elian didn't understand. The guard turned to Elian. Did they threaten you? Elian nodded. Words stuck in his throat. What did they say exactly? That I made a mistake. That I'm a problem now. The guard's jaw tightened. He spoke into the radio again. Elevate threat level. Witness is compromised. We need the boss back here now. Compromised. The word echoed in Elian's head. He'd become a liability. Problem that needed solving. And he'd seen enough movies to know how people like Dominic Blackthorne solve problems. Am I going to die? The question came out smaller than intended. The guard's expression softened fractionally. Not on my watch, but we're moving you. Different floor. More secure. He gestured to his partner. They flanked Elian, creating a human shield as they moved toward the elevator. The hallway suddenly felt longer, more exposed. Every shadow held potential threat. The elevator doors opened. They stepped inside. The doors closed. In the metal reflection, Elian saw himself. Small, terrified, drowning in a hospital blanket. He looked like prey. He'd always looked like prey. The elevator descended instead of ascending. Basement level. I thought we were going to a different floor? Change of plans. Underground parking is more secure. The doors opened to concrete and fluorescent light. A black SUV waited with engine running. Different from the one before, but close enough to make Elian's pulse spike. They moved fast, hands on his shoulders guiding him toward the vehicle. The back door opened. Inside sat a woman, mid-40s, elegant in a way that money couldn't buy. Dark skin, silver threading through black hair pulled back severe. Eyes that assessed Elian with clinical precision. "Get in," she said. It wasn't a suggestion. Elian climbed in. The guards closed the door. The woman didn't introduce herself. "You're Elian Rowe, 26, night cleaning staff at Imperial Tower. No family. No criminal record. No outstanding debts." She recited the facts like reading a grocery list. "You live alone in a studio apartment in Queens. Rent is 4 months overdue. Your landlord filed eviction papers last week." Elian's stomach turned. "Who are you?" "Someone who needs to know if you're worth the risk Dominic is taking by keeping you alive." The words landed like a slap. "I didn't ask for any of this. You just saved the wrong child." The woman's expression didn't change. "And now people who kill for a living know your face, know your name, know where you sleep. Then let me go. I won't tell anyone anything. I'll disappear. You think it's that simple? You think you can just walk away after witnessing what you witnessed?" The woman leaned forward. "They called you. That means they've already decided you're a loose end. And loose ends get tied up permanently." Elian's hands clenched in his lap. "What do you want from me?" "The truth." "Did you see anyone's face? Any identifying features? Anything that could lead us to who orchestrated this?" "I told Dominic already. They wore hoods." "I didn't see." "Think harder." The woman's voice sharpened. Voices, body language, the way they moved. Anything. Elian closed his eyes, forcing himself back to the alley. Rain and darkness and violence playing out like a scene from a nightmare. "The man they took," Elian said slowly. "The one kneeling." He kept saying he was sorry. He was crying. And when they hit him, one of them laughed. Laughed how? Like it was funny. Like hurting people was entertainment. The woman's eyes narrowed. Male voice? Female? Male. Deep. He had an accent. Russian maybe? I'm not sure. The woman pulled out a phone, typed rapidly. "Anything else?" "The sedan. It had a dent in the back bumper. Driver's side. Shaped like someone had backed into a pole." More typing. The woman's expression shifted. Not quite approval, but something close. "You're more observant than you look." "I notice things people don't think matter," Elian said quietly. "It's how you survive when you're invisible." The woman studied him for a long moment. Then she made a call. "It's me." The witness gave us something. Russian accent, distinctive laugh. "Check our records for known associates with that profile. And pull footage from body shops in a 10-mile radius. We're looking for a black sedan with rear bumper damage." She ended the call. "What happens now?" Elian asked. "Now you stay alive long enough for us to use what you know." The woman's tone shifted, becoming almost gentle. "Dominic doesn't save people. He uses them, protects them when they're useful, discards them when they're not. You understand that?" Elian understood. He'd spent his entire life understanding the economy of value. When you had nothing, you learned quickly that protection came with price tags. "What's the price?" he asked. The woman smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "Your testimony when we find them. Your cooperation until this is resolved. And your silence about everything you've seen. And if I refuse, then you're on your own. And those people who called you, they'll find you within 48 hours. The choice wasn't really a choice. Okay, Elian whispered. The woman nodded once. Good. My name is Asha. I run security for Dominic's operations. For the next few days, you belong to me. You go where I say, sleep where I say, speak to who I say. Clear? Clear. Asha's phone buzzed. She answered, listened, then hung up. We've got a location on Rafe Calder. Dominic is en route. She looked at Elian. This is going to get worse before it gets better. Whatever happens next, whatever you hear about, you keep your mouth shut and your head down. Understood. Elian nodded. Outside the SUV's tinted windows, the city moved, oblivious to the violence preparing to unfold. Somewhere out there, Dominic Blackthorne was hunting the man who tried to kill his son, and Elian was trapped in the middle of it all, wondering if saving a child was worth losing everything. The SUV pulled away from the hospital, carrying Elian toward a future he couldn't see but could feel waiting, sharp and hungry and unavoidable. When protection feels more like a cage and silence becomes the only currency you have, how long before you realize you've already been sold? The warehouse smelled like rust and old blood. Dominic walked through the entrance flanked by 4 of his best. Men who'd followed him through worse than this and never flinched. Their footsteps echoed against concrete floors stained with history nobody talked about. Rafe Calder hung from chains in the center of the space. Conscious. Bloodied but not broken yet. His security detail hadn't been so lucky. 3 bodies cooling in the corner, reminders of what happened when loyalty was misplaced. Dominic stopped 10 feet away, close enough to see fear flicker across Rafe's face. Far enough to maintain control while rage begged him to tear the man apart with his bare hands. 8 years, Dominic said quietly. You stood beside me for 8 years. I trusted you with my life, with my business, with my secrets. Rafe spat blood. You trusted me with nothing that mattered. I gave you everything. You gave me scraps. Rafe's voice came out raw. I built half this empire while you played king. I cleaned up your mistakes, buried your problems. And what did I get? Second place. Always second. So this is about ego. This is about respect. Rafe's chains rattled as he shifted weight. You have a son, an heir, and you never told me, never trusted me enough to share that one thing that actually mattered. Dominic's expression didn't change. You know why I kept him secret. Because you're paranoid. Because you see threats everywhere. Because you'd rather sacrifice everything on the altar of control than trust anyone with the truth. Trust is earned. You just proved I was right not to give it. Rafe laughed, wet and painful. You want to know the really funny part? I wasn't going to kill him. I just wanted you to feel it. Wanted you to understand what it's like when someone takes what matters most. You left my son to die in an alley. I left him where you'd find him, humiliated, broken. The great Dominic Blackthorne's failure on display for the world to see. Rafe's eyes gleamed with something ugly. But you got there in time, like you always do. Like you're some kind of hero instead of the monster we both know you are. Dominic stepped closer. Who helped you? Nobody. I did this alone. You disabled a safe house security system designed to be impenetrable. You compromised Marcus without anyone noticing. You orchestrated a kidnapping that should have required a dozen men. Dominic's voice dropped. You had help. Give me names. Go to hell. Dominic nodded once. One of his men stepped forward with a toolbox. The sound of metal on metal filled the warehouse. Last chance, Dominic said. Rafe's jaw set. Do your worst. I'm not giving you anything. Dominic pulled out his phone. Opened a video file. Turned the screen toward Rafe. Recognize her? The footage showed a woman. Young, pretty, laughing as she climbed out of a car. Rafe's younger sister. The one he'd put through medical school. The one he talked about constantly with the kind of pride that said family mattered more than business. Rafe's face drained of color. She lives in Boston, Dominic said conversationally. Works at Massachusetts General. Has a boyfriend named Trevor who's thinking about proposing. They're planning a trip to Italy next spring. Don't. Rafe's voice cracked. Don't you dare. You threaten my son. You used Marcus's daughter as leverage. Did you think I wouldn't return the favor? She has nothing to do with this. Neither did Kale. Neither did Emily Marcus. But you didn't care about that when you were making your point. Dominic pocketed his phone. I'm going to ask you one more time. Who helped you? Rafe's shoulders sagged. The fight drained out of him like water from a broken dam. Nikolai Volkov, Anton's brother. He wanted revenge for Anton's death and I wanted your throne. We made a deal. There it was. The truth underneath the betrayal. Nikolai Volkov, a mid-level enforcer in the Russian syndicate who'd been pushing for territory expansion. Dominic had rejected the proposal 3 months ago. Had Anton killed when he'd tried to force the issue. Apparently, Nikolai had taken it personally. Where is he now? I don't know. We communicated through encrypted channels. He said he'd contact me after it was done. After what was done? Rafe met Dominic's eyes. After you were destroyed. After your empire was dust and your son was a weapon we could use against you. Dominic's hands curled into fists. Every instinct screamed to end this now. To make Rafe suffer the way Kale had suffered. But rage was expensive. Revenge was a luxury he couldn't afford while threats remained. You're going to call Nikolai, Dominic said. You're going to tell him the plan worked. That I'm broken. That you're ready to move forward. And if I refuse, then I visit your sister in Boston, and she learns exactly what her brother is capable of. Rafe's eyes closed. You're a monster. I'm a father. Dominic's voice was ice. And fathers protect their children, no matter the cost. He gestured. One of his men cut Rafe down. The chains fell away. Rafe collapsed to his knees, barely catching himself. Make the call, Dominic ordered. Rafe pulled out a phone with shaking hands, dialed a number, put it on speaker. The line rang twice. A voice answered, thick Russian accent, amused. So, is it done? Rafe swallowed. It's done. He's destroyed. Found his son barely alive. The Omega who found them saw everything. Good. The witness. Under Blackthorne's protection. But she won't matter once we... Dominic's hand shot out, gripping Rafe's throat. The phone dropped. Dominic caught it before it hit the ground. Nikolai, he said calmly. This is Dominic Blackthorne. Silence on the other end. Then laughter, harsh and knowing. I wondered how long before you figured it out. Your underboss, he was so eager to betray you. So desperate for power, he couldn't see he was being used. Meet me. Tonight. Choose the location. Why would I do that? Because if you don't, I'll dismantle your entire operation piece by piece. I'll turn every ally you have into an enemy. I'll make you watch as everything you've built burns. And then, when you have nothing left, I'll kill you slowly. More silence. Calculating. The old factory on Pier 17. 1 hour. Come alone. I don't negotiate alone. Then don't come. But know that every hour you delay, I'm planning something worse than death for that child of yours. The line went dead. Dominic looked at Rafe. You just gave him everything he needed. I did what you told me to. Dominic's hand closed around Rafe's throat again. This time he didn't let go. You used my son as a weapon. You betrayed 8 years of brotherhood. You allied with my enemies. Rafe's face turned purple. His hands clawed at Dominic's grip. There's no redemption for what you've done. The light faded from Rafe's eyes. His body went limp. Dominic let him drop. Silence filled the warehouse. Heavy and complete. One of his men cleared his throat. Boss, what do we do with him? River, Dominic said flatly. Make sure he's never found. He walked toward the exit, pulling out his phone. Called Asha. Status. Witness is secure. Gave us useful intel. Russian accent, body shop lead. We're tracking it now. Good. I need you to pull everything we have on Nikolai Volkov. Known associates, safe houses, bank accounts. Everything. You're going after him? He made it personal. He threatened my son. Again. Boss, if this is a trap, it's definitely a trap. But he doesn't know that I know it's a trap. which means I have the advantage. Asha sighed. You're going to Pier 17, aren't you? 1 hour. Then you're taking backup whether you like it or not. Dominic almost smiled. Asha had been with him long enough to know when arguments were useless. Fine, but they stay hidden until I give the signal. Agreed. He ended the call. Stepped out into cold December air that tasted like rain and violence. Rafe Calder was dead. One threat eliminated. But Nikolai Volkov remained. And as long as he breathed, Kale wasn't safe. Dominic climbed into his SUV. The driver didn't ask for directions. He already knew where they were going. The city blurred past. Lights and shadows and people living normal lives that didn't include warehouses and betrayal and children used as weapons. Somewhere in that city, Elian Rowe was realizing the truth. Saving Kale hadn't been heroic. It had been the beginning of a war. When justice is delivered in silence and bodies disappear like they never existed, who decides where righteousness ends and murder begins? Kale woke to beeping. Steady. Mechanical. The kind of sound that meant machines were measuring whether you were still worth keeping alive. His chest hurt. His throat felt raw. His wrists burned where the zip ties had cut. But he was breathing. That counted for something. He opened his eyes slowly, expecting darkness or strangers or the alley that smelled like rain and copper. Instead, he saw his father. Dominic sat in a chair pulled close to the hospital bed, head bowed, hands clasped like he was praying. Except Dominic Blackthorne didn't pray. Didn't believe in gods or mercy or anything that required faith in things you couldn't control. But he looked like he was trying. Dad. Kale's voice came out scratchy. Dominic's head snapped up. For 1 second, just one, his expression was completely unguarded. Relief and fear and something that might have been love if Kale squinted hard enough. Then the mask slid back into place. Alpha King. Composed. Controlled. You're awake. Yeah. Kale tried to sit up. Pain lanced through his ribs. He gasped. Don't move. Dominic was on his feet instantly. One hand on Kale's shoulder, gentle but firm. The doctor said you need to stay still. You have bruised ribs and your lungs took a hit from the cold. I'm okay. You're not. The words came out harsher than probably intended. Dominic's jaw tightened. You almost died, Kale. You were 10 minutes from hypothermia shutting down your organs. If that Omega hadn't found you. He stopped, couldn't finish the sentence. Kale had never seen his father at a loss for words. But he did find me, Kale said quietly. And you came. Like I knew you would. I was late. You're always late. The words hung between them. Not angry, just factual. 3 years of missed moments cataloged in a simple sentence. Dominic sat back down. His hands gripped his knees, knuckles white. I need to tell you something, he said. And I need you to listen without interrupting. Kale nodded. 3 years ago, I made a decision. Your mother was pregnant with you, and my enemies were circling. Revealing an heir meant painting a target on your back before you could even breathe. So I publicly rejected the pregnancy, called it a lie, paid your mother to disappear. Kale's chest tightened, not from injury, from understanding crashing down like a wave. You said I was dead, Kale whispered. I said the claim was false. I let people assume what they wanted. Dominic's eyes stayed locked on Kale's. I told myself it was to protect you, that keeping you secret kept you safe, that distance equaled survival. But it didn't. No, didn't. Dominic's voice cracked around the edges. They found you anyway, used you as a weapon, left you bleeding on the street. And all that distance I created, it just meant I almost lost you permanently. Silence settled. The machines kept beeping. Proof of life continuing despite everything trying to stop it. Do you hate me? Dominic asked. The question came out raw, vulnerable. Nothing like the Alpha King who ruled an empire. Kale thought about it. Really thought about it. All the missed birthdays. The empty chairs at school events. The nights he'd waited for phone calls that never came. 3 years of being hidden like a secret instead of claimed like a son. He should hate him. But when the zip ties had cut into his wrists and the cold had seeped into his bones and death had felt close enough to touch, there'd been one thought in his mind. Dad will come. Not might, not maybe, will. Because despite everything, despite the distance and the lies and the abandonment that wasn't quite abandonment, Cale knew one truth. His father loved him. Dominic Blackthorne just didn't know how to love without destroying everything around him in the process. I don't hate you, Cale said finally, but I don't want to be a secret anymore. Dominic's breath caught. You won't be. Promise. No more hiding. No more lies. What about Mom? The question made Dominic flinch. I don't know where she is. After she left, she disappeared completely. My people have been searching, but you're going to find her. It wasn't a question. It was a requirement. Dominic nodded slowly. I'll find her, and I'll explain, and I'll beg forgiveness I don't deserve. She probably won't forgive you. I know, but you'll try anyway? I'll try anyway. Cale reached for his father's hand. Dominic took it carefully, like he was holding something fragile. I'm sorry, Dominic whispered. I'm sorry I made you think late was the same as not caring. I'm sorry I taught you to wait instead of teaching you that you never had to question whether I'd come. You came tonight, almost too late, but not quite. Cale squeezed his father's hand. Not quite too late. They sat like that for a long time. Father and son connected by touch and truth and the tentative hope that maybe broken things could be repaired if you were willing to bleed putting the pieces back together. A knock at the door broke the moment. Dominic's expression hardened instantly, shifting back to the Alpha King who trusted no one. Dr. Chun entered carrying a tablet. Mr. Blackthorne, I need to discuss Cale's discharge plan. He's not leaving until I'm certain he's stable. He's stable now, but he'll need follow-up appointments, physical therapy for his ribs, counseling for... No counseling. Dominic's tone was final. Dr. Chen's eyebrows rose. With respect, Mr. Blackthorne, your son was kidnapped and left to die. Trauma like that doesn't just disappear because the physical wounds heal. I'll handle it. Handle it how? By pretending it didn't happen? By teaching him that vulnerability is weakness. Dominic stood. Watch yourself, Sarah. But Dr. Chun didn't back down. I've worked for you for 5 years. I've patched up your men and kept your secrets and never asked questions. But that child in this bed? He deserves better than being trained to suppress everything he feels. Cale spoke up. She's right, Dad. Dominic turned. Cale, I'm scared. The admission felt like ripping off a bandage. I keep thinking about the alley, about being cold, about thinking nobody cared enough to look for me. And if I don't talk about it, it's just going to stay there. Growing. Dominic's expression softened. I care. I've always cared. I know. But caring and showing it are different things. The truth was a knife, sharp and necessary. Dominic looked at Dr. Chun. Set up the counseling. But I choose the therapist. Someone I trust. Dr. Chun nodded. I'll send you a list. She left. The door clicked closed. Dominic sat back down. He looked exhausted. Not physically, emotionally, like the weight of 3 years was finally settling on his shoulders. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. The father thing. I know how to build empires, how to command loyalty, how to make people fear me. But being the person you need, I'm learning as I go. Then we'll learn together, Cale said. What if I'm too late? What if I've already broken too much? Then we fix what we can and forgive what we can't. Dominic's eyes closed. When he opened them again, they were wet. Cale had never seen his father cry. You're too smart for 8 years old, Dominic whispered. You taught me that. You said understanding people was survival. I did, but I never taught you that understanding included forgiving them. Maybe that's something I learned from Mom. The name hung between them, the ghost in the room, the person Dominic had erased and Cale had never stopped imagining. I'm going to find her, Dominic said with finality, even if it takes years, even if she never wants to see me again. You deserve to know your mother. Cale nodded. His eyes were getting heavy. The medication Dr. Chun had adjusted was pulling him back towards sleep. Dad. Yeah. Next time, don't be late. Dominic's hand tightened around Kale's. I won't. I promise. Kale's eyes closed. His breathing evened out. Within minutes, he was asleep. Dominic stayed in the chair, hand still wrapped around his son's. Outside the window, the sun was starting to rise, pale December light creeping across the city. His phone buzzed. A text from Asha. Nikolai Volkov located. We have eyes on his operation. Waiting for your order. Dominic typed back, hold position. I'm coming. He looked at Kale one more time. Memorized the face that was both his and not his. The child he'd denied and almost lost and was just now learning how to claim. Then he stood, kissed Kale's forehead the way fathers were supposed to, and walked out to finish the war he'd started 3 years ago by choosing power over love. When a child forgives what shouldn't be forgiven, does that make them wise, or does it just mean they've learned to survive their parents' failures? The file was 23 pages long. Elian sat in a safe house apartment, luxurious by his standards, prison by any other, reading about the woman whose existence he'd never known until 3 hours ago. Zara Kingsley, age 28 when she disappeared. Omega, bonded to Dominic Blackthorne, pregnant with his heir. The photos showed someone beautiful in a way that made Elian's chest ache. Dark eyes, natural hair in long locks, smile that looked genuine despite being photographed at galas and charity events where smiling was required. She'd been a teacher before meeting Dominic. Elementary school, art class, the kind of person who believed in children and creativity and the possibility that the world could be gentle. Then she'd bonded with an alpha king, and gentleness had become a luxury she couldn't afford. Asha sat across from him, watching. You understand why this matters? Dominic wants to find her, Elian said slowly, to make things right with his son. Dominic wants to control the narrative. Finding Zara means he can explain, apologize, maybe convince her to come back. Asha's expression was unreadable. Which is where you come in. Elian looked up. Me? You're an Omega. Poor. Survived alone in a city that eats people like you for breakfast. You understand what it's like to be powerless in a world run by alphas with too much money and too few morals. So Zara won't trust anyone Dominic sends. She'll assume it's a trap. But you, Asha leaned forward. You saved her son. You risked everything for a child you didn't know. If anyone can convince her that Dominic has changed, it's you. Elian's stomach turned. You want me to find her? I don't even know where to start. We do. Asha slid a photograph across the table. This was taken 6 months ago. Chattanooga, Tennessee. She's using the name Zara Mitchell now. Works as a waitress at a diner called Rosie's. Lives alone. Keeps to herself. The photograph showed a woman walking down a street. Same features as the file photos but different. Harder. Thinner. Hair cut short. The kind of different that came from surviving things that should have broken you. She looks. Elian couldn't finish. Haunted, Asha supplied. Because she is. Dominic publicly destroyed her. Called her pregnancy a lie. Had his people spread rumors that she was mentally unstable. Trying to trap him. By the time she left the city, her reputation was ashes. Why would she ever want to see him again? She wouldn't. But she might want to see her son. The words landed like stones. You're using Kale as leverage, Elian said flatly. I'm giving her a choice. Come back and be part of her son's life. Or stay hidden and let him grow up thinking his mother abandoned him. That's cruel. That's survival. Asha's tone was matter-of-fact. Dominic Blackthorne doesn't do sentimentality. He does results. And right now, the result he needs is Zara back in the picture so Kale stops looking at him like he's the villain. Elian thought about the child in the hospital bed. Mismatched eyes. Small voice saying his father would come. What if she says no? Then you convince her otherwise. You tell her about the kidnapping. About how close Kale came to dying. About how Dominic finally realized that power means nothing if you lose everyone who matters. And if I can't convince her? Asha's expression hardened. Then you stay in Tennessee until you can. Because right now, you're the only card we have that Zara might actually trust. Elian looked at the photograph again. Zara Mitchell née Kingsley, former teacher, destroyed by the man she'd bonded with, hiding in Tennessee and probably still looking over her shoulder. When do I leave? Tonight. Private plane. 2 guards who'll stay out of sight but close enough to protect you. You have 48 hours to make contact and present the offer. And if she runs? She won't. She gave up running 3 years ago. Now she's just existing, waiting for something to matter again. Asha stood. You're going to be that something. She left. Elian sat alone with the file and the weight of expectations he hadn't asked for. His phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Still alive, little Omega? For now. His hands shook. The threat was clear. Nikolai Volkov's people knew where he was. Knew he was under protection. Knew he was a loose end. Another text. Enjoy your last few days. You should have walked away when you had the chance. Elian deleted both messages. Tried to breathe. Failed. He'd saved a child and stumbled into a war. Now he was being sent to find a woman who'd been erased, to deliver a message from the man who'd erased her. The universe had a cruel sense of humor. Hours later, Elian stood in a private airport hangar, watching a plane that probably cost more than his entire neighborhood prepare for takeoff. Asha handed him a phone. This has 1 number programmed. Mine. You call if anything goes wrong. The guards have instructions to keep you safe but stay invisible. Zara doesn't need to know you're protected. What do I tell her? The truth. That her son almost died. That Dominic is trying to change. That she has a choice. Asha paused. But Elian? Don't lie to her. Zara Kingsley survived Dominic Blackthorne once. She'll smell deception a mile away. Elian nodded. Climbed the plane's stairs. The door closed behind him with a finality that felt like crossing a point of no return. The plane took off. Below, the city lights faded. Manhattan becoming memory. Safety becoming a concept that didn't apply anymore. Elian pulled out the file. Read it again. Studied Zara's face until he'd memorized the shape of her loss. Somewhere in Tennessee, a woman who'd been destroyed was about to learn her son had nearly died. And Elian was the messenger. He closed his eyes, tried to sleep, dreamed instead of alleys and rain and children asking why their fathers didn't come. When morning arrived, the plane touched down in Chattanooga. 2 guards materialized, silent, professional, disappearing into the background like Asha promised. Elian took a taxi to Rosie's diner, sat in a booth by the window, ordered coffee he didn't want, and waited. At 11:47 a.m., she walked in. Zara Mitchell wore a simple uniform, hair pulled back, no makeup, moving with the efficiency of someone who'd learned to be invisible. She didn't recognize Elian. Didn't even glance his direction as she started her shift. Elian watched her work, watched her smile at customers, polite but not warm, watched her exist in a space where nobody knew who she'd been or what she'd survived. He waited until her break, until she sat alone in the back booth, nursing water and looking exhausted in a way that went deeper than physical. Then he approached. Zara Kingsley? She froze, looked up. Eyes that had been empty suddenly sharpened with fear and recognition, and something that might have been hope if hope wasn't dangerous. Who's asking? My name is Elian Rowe. I need to talk to you about your son. The water glass slipped from her hand, shattered on the floor. Nobody moved to help. Zara's face drained of color. My son is dead. No, Elian said gently. He's alive, and he needs you. When ghosts resurface with messages from the past, do you run again or do you finally stop and face what you've been hiding from? Dominic stood on Pier 17 at exactly midnight. The warehouse behind him was abandoned, decades of rust and broken dreams crumbling into the East River. Fog rolled off the water, thick enough to hide threats and muffle sound. Perfect ambush territory. Nikolai Volkov emerged from shadows like he'd been born there. Tall, broad, face that looked carved by violence and poor decisions. He moved flanked by 6 men, all armed, all watching Dominic like he was prey that hadn't realized it was surrounded. Dominic Blackthorne. Nikolai's accent was thick, amused. You came alone. Bold or stupid? Efficient. Dominic kept his hands visible, relaxed. You wanted to talk. So talk. You killed my brother. Your brother tried to extort territory I'd already claimed. He made his choice. And I made mine. Nikolai smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Your son is weak point, soft spot in armor. I find him, I own you. You found him, you failed. This time, but there will be others. Always others. Nikolai gestured to his men. You cannot protect him forever, cannot watch every shadow. Eventually, you slip, and when you do, I win. Dominic's expression didn't change. You're assuming you'll live that long. Nikolai laughed. Big words from man standing alone against 7. Who said I'm alone? The words barely left Dominic's mouth before the pier exploded with movement. Asha and her team materialized from positions Nikolai's men hadn't checked. Rooftops, water, shadows that had looked empty. 12 against 7. Surrounded. Nikolai's smile vanished. You wanted a war, Dominic said quietly. Here it is. The violence was fast, precise, over in minutes that felt like hours. When silence returned, Nikolai knelt on wet wood, hands zip-tied behind his back, blood streaming from his nose. His men were either unconscious or restrained. None dead yet. That came later. Dominic crouched in front of him. You threatened my son, used him as leverage, made the mistake of thinking I valued my empire more than his life. You do, Nikolai spat. Everyone knows. You abandoned him for power. You will do it again. Maybe I would've. 3 years ago. Dominic's voice was ice. But that man died in an alley when he saw his son bleeding on the ground. What's left now? That's just a father. And fathers burn the world for their children. He pulled out a phone, showed Nikolai a photograph. Recognize her? The image showed Nikolai's sister. Safe house, sleeping, completely unaware that her life hung on her brother's decisions. Nikolai's face drained. You wouldn't. I already sent people to her location. One call from me and she disappears. Just like you tried to make my son disappear. She's innocent. So was Kale. Dominic stood. But here's the difference between us. I don't kill innocents. I don't need to, because you're gonna tell me every name of everyone who helped you. Every safe house, every account, every piece of your operation. And in exchange, your sister lives. Nikolai's jaw worked. Pride versus survival. Loyalty versus family. Family won. He talked. Gave up 23 names. For safe houses. Bank accounts in 3 countries. Information that would dismantle his entire organization by dawn. When he finished, Dominic made a call. Let her go. No harm. He ended the call. Looked at Nikolai. Your sister will wake up tomorrow thinking she had a normal night. She'll never know how close she came. But you, Dominic's expression was stone. You don't get mercy. You promised. I promised your sister would live. I promised nothing about you. Dominic walked away. Asha stayed behind. The sound of a single gunshot echoed across the water. Then silence. Dominic climbed into his SUV. The driver pulled away from the pier, leaving bodies and choices and the cost of threatening children behind. His phone buzzed. Text from the safe house where Elian was staying. He's gone. Left 3 hours ago. Said he had a job to do. Dominic's stomach dropped. Where is Elian Rowe? The driver glanced in the rearview mirror. According to the tracker Asha put on him, Chattanooga, Tennessee. Of course, Asha had sent him after Zara. Dominic should have been angry, should have shut it down, should have maintained control the way he always did. Instead, he felt something close to hope. Maybe Elian could do what Dominic couldn't. Maybe an Omega who understood abandonment could reach another Omega who'd survived it. Maybe broken things could find each other and heal in ways power never could. His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. Blackthorne. Mr. Blackthorne? A woman's voice, shaking, familiar in a way that made his chest tighten. This is Zara. I need to talk to you about our son. The world stopped. 3 years of silence. 3 years of searching. 3 years of believing he'd destroyed the one bond that mattered. And now this, a phone call, her voice, the words, our son, spoken aloud for the first time since the night everything shattered. Zara. His voice came out rough. I'm listening. Elian told me what happened, about the kidnapping, about how close we came to. She couldn't finish. I need to see him. I need to see Kale. When? Now. Tomorrow. I don't care. Her voice broke. I thought running kept him safe, but he almost died anyway, and I wasn't there. You can be there now. Silence on the other end. Then why? Why would you let me back after everything? Because I was wrong. The admission tasted like blood. I chose power over you, over him, and it almost cost me everything that actually mattered. So if you're willing to try again, not for me, for Kale, I'll spend the rest of my life proving I've changed. More silence. Dominic could hear her breathing, could imagine her standing somewhere in Tennessee, holding a phone and deciding whether to believe the man who destroyed her. I'm not promising anything, she finally said, but I'll come, for Kale, not for you. That's all I'm asking. Elian will travel with me. He helped me understand, made me see that staying away was hurting Kale more than coming back could. Dominic made a note to thank Elian, to give him everything he'd lost by getting tangled in this, to prove that kindness, even from strangers, mattered. There's a plane waiting, Dominic said. I'll text you the hangar location. It'll bring you home. Home. Zara laughed, bitter. I don't know if I have one of those anymore. Then we'll build you one. Whatever you need. Whatever makes you safe. I just need to see my son. Then come see him. The call ended. Dominic sat back in the SUV, exhaustion crashing over him like a wave. The empire was secure. The threats were eliminated. His son was safe. And the woman he'd bonded with, the one he'd abandoned and destroyed and spent 3 years searching for, was coming home. Not because he'd commanded it, because an Omega named Elian Rowe had done what Dominic couldn't, had reached across the distance and pulled her back with truth instead of power. The SUV pulled up to the hospital. Dominic climbed out, walked through empty hallways toward the ICU where Kale slept. He entered the room quietly, sat in the chair that was starting to feel permanent. Kale stirred, opened his eyes. Dad, I'm here. Did you find Mom? Dominic smiled. First genuine smile in 3 years. She's coming. She'll be here tomorrow. Kale's face lit up. Really? Really? How? Someone braver than me convinced her. Someone who understood what you needed better than I did. Kale reached for his father's hand. You're learning. I'm trying. That's enough. For now. Outside the window, dawn broke over the city. New day, new chance, new possibility that maybe fathers who failed could learn to be better if their children were patient enough to teach them. Dominic held his son's hand and watched the sunrise and thought about an Omega in Tennessee who'd risked everything to deliver a message. Thought about a woman boarding a plane to face the man who'd destroyed her. Thought about a child who'd forgiven what shouldn't be forgiven, and realized that power meant nothing if it couldn't protect the people who made power worth having. The past was no longer buried. The future was waiting. And this time, Dominic Blackthorne wouldn't be late. When second chances arrive wrapped in forgiveness you don't deserve, the only question left is whether you're brave enough to take them. If this story moved you, if it made you think about power and protection, abandonment and second chances, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. We have more stories that challenge, inspire, and remind us that even in the darkest moments, one person's courage can change everything. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done in Elian's position? Would you have made the call? Let's inspire each other with our stories. Your voice matters here,